So I went to go see Rush. Now, Rush is based on the real-life rivalry between two Formula One race car drivers back in the 70s, James Hunt, played by Chris Hemsworth, and Nicki Lauda, played by Daniel Brühl. And it's directed by Ron Howard. Now, if you don't know who Ron Howard is, you really haven't been paying attention. But on the off chance you really don't, he's been the director behind all sorts of stuff. Willow, Cocoon, Splash, A Beautiful Mind, Apollo 13, Frost Nixon, and that really terrifying live-action How the Grinch Stole Christmas movie. No one's perfect, huh? So, there's a couple of points that I find impressive about this film. So much so that I can't imagine I'm going to be the only person saying anything about them. But, for one, even though the film is being narrated by Lauda, it goes to great lengths to remain neutral in the rivalry between him and Hall. It shows us the character flaws from both men and really how they play against each other to drive them to greater heights of achievement. And this is really only helped by the strength of performances from both Hemsworth and Brühl. Although I have to say, I'm a little worried that Hemsworth might end up getting typecast in that sort of arrogant party boy thing, with his performance here and as Thor in the Marvel movies, which really would kind of be a shame. And secondly, the racing. And now this is coming from someone who doesn't normally watch NASCAR or Formula One. I don't like racing video games. I'm not a big chase scene person, although some of them can be fun. But the race scenes in this film are fantastic. The way they are shot really engages you. It cuts out all the boring parts, and you're left with all the really great passes and the wrecks, and it's just really engaging, very fun to watch. Kudos to Ron Howard and his team for having such fantastic race scenes. It's really impressive. So here we have a movie about a nearly legendary real-life rivalry involving almost implausible actual events, shot by a more than competent director who's getting solid performances out of his actors and giving us incredibly kinetic, engaging, entertaining race scenes. So it sounds like it's an almost perfect race movie, right? Well, everything has flaws. Now this here isn't so much a flaw as it is something that really bothers me about movies that are based on real events. It's the fact that they're based on real events and not actually real events. They're not going out of their way to show us what happened. They're going out of their way to show us a good story that's roughly similar to what actually happened. So it's going to switch around the timeline or change events, oftentimes somewhat significantly, just for dramatic effect, or if it's trying to make a point, sometimes it leaves out evidence and leaves out things that really detract from its point, but they might be important things. So that really, every time I watch a movie that's based on real events, this is going through my mind, and I feel like I have to go home and check the internet and Wikipedia and really research things to know exactly how right the movie was, and which is partly why how neutral this film stays is really to its credit. Although just a quick glance at Wikipedia, even when I got home, showed at least one change for dramatic effect in Rush. So yeah, that kind of always bothers me. Now, more importantly, the problem with this film is time. Not only is it focusing on the entire 76 season of Formula One racing, which is enough for a film in and of itself, but it goes back in time 6 years to show us the development of Hall and Lauda's rivalry and how they played off each other even back then. And so it doesn't give you much time to really get to know the men, as it is just focusing primarily on the rivalry between the two men. And not only that, but once you get to the race scenes, it can't spend much time on any one race, and there's a lot of races involved. And so we're really left with the TV announcer and Lauda's character's narration to let us know what's going on. So it doesn't really show you these things, it just we have to rely on the narrator telling us how important these things are. And it loses some of its punch that way, which is unfortunate, but I can understand why they did it this way. It's just not quite as effective as it might be otherwise. Now, lastly, this is a minor nitpick, and I know I said the race scenes were really one of the strengths of this movie, and they still are, mind you, but they do rely a little bit overmuch on shaky cam and a couple other camera tricks like slow-mo and things like that. So sometimes they can be a little bit hard to follow and see exactly what's going on, which is unfortunate because the scenes are otherwise really fantastically shot and really entertaining. It's just every once in a while you'll lose track of who you're watching, or it's just, you know, ooh, that's a pretty shot, but what am I looking at sort of scenes. So yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but not a huge detractor in my mind. In the end, Rush is a well-acted, well-directed film about a nearly legendary rivalry and the incredible events that occurred because of it. It's certainly not for all audiences. I mean, it's set in the 70s, so there's sex and there's drugs, but I think it's well worth watching. What do you think? Love it? Hate it? Let me know, yeah? Until next time, folks, enjoy film.